Aiesha Cosmos.
So this book is weaving together of apparently separate branches of ancestral wisdom that have come to be seen as separate from each other, and yet upon further practice and study one can come to find that these specific ancestral teachings are not only complementary of each other but interrelated and in a way complete each other, creating thus larger vision of wisdom on earth and how different cultures have been keeping different facets of what in ancient times used to be one singular body of knowledge, which could be termed the Tree of Wisdom. This Tree of Wisdom is a Tree of Wisdom because it is capable of holding the values, the principles, the ancient supreme truths and frequency of divine alignment and integration of all polarities, alchemizing all states into the divine, present, co-creative service to others state. This ancient wisdom, when considered as separate from each other, like Mayan stuff or Toltec stuff, ancient Vedic stuff, if we think of it separate by practicing only that one path, it's like a limited scope. Even though the Mayan alone is so infinitely vast and powerful and in divine alignment and perfect, yet if all of a sudden you take into account the Toltec path and all the consequences and practices and everything of the Toltec path, and then you begin to activate it together with the practices of the Mayan path, and then bring in the ancient Vedic sacred sexual activation, they complement each other and empower each other and deepen each other in unfathomable ways that are revolutionarily exceeding the scope of each one of these aspects separate. And so this ancient tree of wisdom that possesses the manifold practices and understandings and points of view of all the different medicines and different teachings and deep awareness of the function and purpose of our quantum technology of our body, our quantum body, and how that quantum body functions. Even though this super advanced understandings of this super deep wisdom still acknowledge the mystery and that which is unknowable and that which is yet unknown, which is why at this time it's so important to be able to bring these systems to co-create and collaborate with each other as to allow the human being to develop the inner understanding of its own divine technologies so it can come to evolve its potential and develop its capacity to serve beyond the understanding of how we think we can be useful right now. We have far more functions and talents and scope of claiming of personal power and activating many different skills that are part of our quantum light biology. So it's light consciousness, and having this practical way of working with our deeper faculties, it begins to unlock a way of aligning with integrity, aligning with depth of purpose, aligning with true calling, with a true sense of service, and also true healing, true alchemizing of the story and whatever it is that we have gone through in order to create that divine diamond of consciousness, responsibility, discipline, and gratitude. That is the fertile soil for wisdom to take root. Even though all these separate paths contain innate wisdom, weaving them together allows for a different level of wisdom to begin to be activated. This process of the tree of wisdom having been broken into pieces has tales that explain how come it happened. And so what I have managed to piece together of these different tales is that 26,000 years ago, at the end of the last age, there was a great cataclysm activated by humanity's own desire to advance to a new frequency, to evolve. But there wasn't the emotional maturity, the love-centered presence, and supreme consciousness necessary to carry through such an experiment. And so it's meant to have gone awry, and that brought on wound in the energy body of the earth, through which filtered in entities that came from a shadow world or a shadow dimension. And these entities eat awareness. In what is meant to have been Atlantis, people began to lose their awareness because the entities began to consume it. And that was the beginning of forgetting, and also it's meant to be why written language was anchored in, because all of a sudden everybody's universal awareness or complete awareness began to get eaten up, and that led to people not being able to remember what they knew. These Atlanteans that were self-realized masters of themselves were able to take many of the people and sort of save them and take them to Egypt. And then there, one of these Atlanteans was Thoth. And so Thoth, the scribe, began written language to be able to record everything that was happening and the ancient wisdom. But that led to the fracturing of knowledge and the separation of our own divine consciousness and our capacity to see the full picture of everything we know, because it is meant to be that this parasite influences our thought processes and our emotional reactions through our trauma wounds, and also by projecting through the illusory reflection of separation. It exploits separation, abandonment, lack of trust, trauma, loss of innocence, especially when we're very little. Then it uses these trigger points to just manipulate humanity individually inside each person's mind. So these practices are these like ancestral, thousands of years old practices that originate from this ancient wisdom that was already ours back then, but we didn't have the love maturity. It's like if we had truly activated the true wealth of this wisdom, that was our natural birthright. But only few people fully activated it. Many were just sort of in a state of natural grace that wasn't really mature and self-earned. It was more just like, I was just born super perfect, no? But there isn't like an understanding of yourself and how you function and your capabilities and your capacity for shadow or for light. And so this ancient wisdom, even though it was possessed, it wasn't like embodied in everybody. No, not everybody really had the full growth and development necessary to be immune to external goings on, which is what the path of ultimate warrior freedom, divine alignment, and ultimate service offers to the practitioner who goes into that path. And so this a long sort of like separation. Now it's like the Mayans are meant to also be from back there, like of the same people, but they ended up in the Yucatan. And then Toltecs were everywhere, but they became more widely known in central Mexico, and also they built Teotihuacan, which was the pyramid complex, which translates to the place where man becomes God. And so it was this Toltec path university where the people there were practitioners of ever evolving practices of Toltequity, which definitely have gone through their own processes of transformation, especially when the Spaniards came. They had to evolve a lot and shed much of the superfluous mumbo jumbo to get to the root power. But 20 years ago, perhaps, I found a little book. I cannot remember the name of it, and I've not been able to find it again. But it was the son of an archaeologist that actually had been tracking the roots of the Mayan civilization in ancient Vedic civilization, and had found that even the Sanskrit language and the Mayan language had many of the same words. And personally, in my own journeys at the pyramids, and also connecting in the divine psychedelic realms, definitely the energies that have visited me over and over and over the past 2.5 decades that I've been practicing and researching these paths, they did both come, like never blended. It was always like when I was having a Mayan download, it was like fully Mayan. The iconography or the designs, it was all just like a Mayan codex. But then when I had the other downloads of like the ancient Vedic, it was fully that, and it was all just the type of clothing and the skirts and the jewelry and everything gold, and having this true connection with the sacred messages coming from these different traditions. And it was always given to me like that: the Mayan, the Toltec, and the Vedic, which is the Mayan is the sacred synchronicity of timekeeping and aligning human consciousness with divine consciousness, and being able to step into the capacity to perceive every single event and connection as divinely timed and part of your unavoidable walk on earth. That the deeper you surrender to these forces that rule your life already, the more that you're able to activate the divine gifts and opportunities that are being made possible because of that particular time synchronic alignment. And then in the Toltec, it is these practices to free oneself of one's identity and one's belief systems and reclaim the power of the past to be able to continuously co-create with the divine and become the most impeccable servant and the most freest mystery, even unto oneself. And from the Vedic is this divine knowledge of the sacred polarity and devotion and presence, consciousness, and all of the practices of the divine masculine and the divine feminine, which men and women both practice on their own with the divine. So a man practices on his own with the divine feminine, learning to penetrate life and learning to conserve its seed in order to keep its energy and also have command of its creative power, instead of losing power to any problem or situation of life or any woman that seduces you. Having control over that aspect of you makes you so that nobody can seduce you, nobody can manipulate you, nobody can even make you impregnate them against your will. And then the feminine part is the connection to the sacred devotion and receptivity towards the divine masculine consciousness of creation, and being able to make love to the divine and receive the divine as your ultimate Lord and King. And in that perfect impeccability of the relationship to the divine masculine, then the woman is better able to serve men in the physical vessel as a man, and to be able to serve the divine masculine inside men in whichever appropriate dynamic is always evolving. So this knowledge and this wisdom of being able to have men and women relate to life as the sacred polarity that each man or woman has with either life or consciousness, life being the feminine and consciousness being the masculine, also facilitates men and women being able to relate to each other as that divinity inside of each other, and to then have the skills and practices to be able to bring each other back to that again and again and again, no matter how many times we may forget ourselves and become disassociated from our core. And so this is a path of being able to awaken God in another and bring that other back to the God that they are at their core, again and again and again, through storms and whatever. And so in order to serve another so selflessly, personal practice and discipline is of utmost importance. All three of these paths have a deep discipline and deep practice that is required to be able to activate it. But being here at this time where humanity is facing so many impossible odds and nothing seems to be working to really begin to get it together and to make a true progress in our consciousness development and our capacity to truly embody the fullness of our potential. So much of the New Age has inundated the scene, completely creating confusion and distraction from that which is truly foundational. So these different paths of these wisdom branches of this ancient tree of wisdom that used to be one singular body of knowledge that was practiced as a whole, as a balanced, multi-pronged way of life, is at this time the perfect time at the coming of the same transformational period of the 26,000 year change, which ended in December 21st, 2012, now has begun the 20-year transition period between the old age and the new age. And so the new will be fully embodied starting on December 22nd, 2032. And so right now we're like transiting through year 10, which is exactly the halfway mark. And so we're like more in the new cycle now than we are in the old. But there's still 9 more years left before the new is ruling absolutely, and there's no more of the older time. So this transition period is coming to purify all illusions. And since most of the available practices people are doing don't seem to be doing the trick, I felt called to put this wisdom down together, coupled with stories of my life and how I came to meet and experience and find for myself what is it that these different practices are able to provide. And so at this time, I put this down as a divine service to humanity to support the current transition and the stepping into our true power and our true divine inheritance, so as to be able to navigate all that is taking place within ourselves and in the world with the utmost grace, efficiency, and adventure.
You can find the complete manual for enlightenment by visiting aieshacosmos.com.